Okay, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, whoever's joining. This is Channel Horrible, and I'm here with Steve from Steve Talks Movies and Steve Talks Books. Hello, Steve. How you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm not too bad. I'm not too bad. It's been a bit snowy here. We've had a bit of snow, a bit of a cold snap in the UK. But yeah, a bit windy, rainy. I'm from your side of the pool, from your side of the pond.
It has been
start for me. Got disconnected.
Yeah, it's okay. It's been actually a little warmer than normal here. It's been actually kind of nice, so I can't complain.
Excellent. Nice.
I think I'm losing you.
We're here to but before we do, I keep on breaking up. Oh no, it's terrible. I think this is it. This should be it. It should be fine. It should be fine. Apologies. But before we do, I needed to congratulate you, Steve, on your 32 movies a day for a month. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What was your inspiration in doing this? What a kind of colossal task it was, or what your kind of findings of doing 32 movie reviews in a day for a month?
Yeah, well, it's supposed to help with the algorithm to have consistent content for 30 days. I'm not sure if that's true or not. I mean, I don't know if anybody really knows how the algorithm works, but I had done it on my other channel, and I thought it did okay, and I thought it was a good way just to kind of kick it off. And I don't know, I didn't think it through very well, but it was fun. But no, I thought it turned out okay. It was fun.
What were you? I mean, it's hard enough to do like a kind of review for a film in any way, like a bit of planning. I know like these were shortened reviews that you were doing. What were the kind of hurdles that you found from doing this? There might have been like life gets in the way sometimes. Did you find any days that you were just like, oh God, no?
Yeah, there was a couple of those days. There was a couple of times when I would watch a couple of movies over the weekend, and then I would record like 5. So I had some spare. So when I had those shit days, I could just throw one of those up there. Yeah. Yeah. So when things went wrong, yeah, there was a couple of days where there was no way I'd be able to fit it in, and I had backups, thankfully. So it worked out okay.
Just for those rainy days when life gets in the way and stuff like that. But one of those films was Possessor. Andrew Riseborough by Brandon Cronenberg. Second film, I believe, Antiviral, which I was just talking to you before we came on. We both hadn't seen it, sort of thing. And it's intriguing to me anyway. Do you know the concept of antiviral? Or
I don't. I haven't really looked into it.
So I mean, from watching Possessor as well, which I watched first of all, that was my first Brandon Cronenberg foray, so to speak. I didn't realize that Antiviral was actually a film that he made beforehand, but it's basically about someone who takes the diseases of celebrities and then sort of sells them off to people so they can inject themselves to have the same disease or the same STD or whatever it may be from the celebrity. And I just thought, it's the kind of Cronenberg thing. Yeah, I thought it was great. But yeah, Possessor, was that your first kind of way into? Sorry, was that Possessor your first foray into the Brandon Cronenberg's world?
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't even know who he was. I just figured he was related to the other Cronenberg. I forget his name. But yeah, I just kind of picked up Possessor on a whim, not really knowing what it was, and I loved it.
David Cronenberg,
I loved Possessor. Yeah. So no, I love Possessor, and it seems like there is a common theme that runs through at least these two films, Infinity Pool and Possessor.
Yeah, I was just about to say that there are a lot of themes that he delves into with both Possessor and Infinity Pool. Themes of the abandonment of the self, I guess, is one of the main ones there. But yeah, so let's get it into Infinity Pool. I watched this a couple of weeks back. I was blown away. I love this film. This has a lot of things going for it, but let's just talk about the story first. James, played by Alexander Skarsgård, is a writer who, with his wife, M, go to this fictitious island or state of Litoka.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but I'm going to Litoka, which is like an idyllic sort of little resort place. Think of like the best Butlins kind of seaside resort you've ever had in your life, and maximize it by 10. It seems to kind of cater for every need. They meet up with a couple, Mia Goth's Gabby and her husband Albin, and they are instantly like this intrinsic couple that just bring this kind of danger element to things. You kind of get the sense at the very beginning that James and them are kind of going through it in their relationship. I think that's kind of to say. And yeah, they go out one night. They say, "Hey, let's go beyond the resort walls." And for me, this was kind of like first part of like something's not quite right here, because on the resort walls you have this barbed wire fence, this kind of like chain link barbed wire, and it seems like the kind of inhabitants, or sorry, the indigenous people of this fictional state seem to be compared to as like barbarians. Like there's, if you go out there, you don't know if you're going to be coming back, sort of thing. They go out there, they're having like a fun time, they're having a few drinks by the seaside and everything like that. Yeah, we go from there. So we're going to break it down. But what were your first thoughts, Steve, on the beginning of this?
Well, let me ask you, did you see the trailer for this before you watched it?
I'll be honest with you. I'm one of those kind of people. If it's a film that I know, I tend to try not to watch trailers of films that I know I'm going to go and see. And with this one, I wanted to see it eyes wide shut. I didn't want to know anything about it. Like if you see a trailer for like a AAA, superhero film, that's fine. I'm going to watch it. But if it's like for a film like this that I'm going to watch, and I don't want to know anything about it. And I didn't know anything about this going in, and I'm so glad I didn't. Are you going to tell me something now that it spoils a lot in the trailer, or?
Yeah, well, yeah, I didn't. I'm the same way. I don't. Yeah, I don't watch trailers, and if I know I'm gonna, very rarely do I watch a trailer. But I'm so glad I didn't, because it spoils some pretty major events in the movie that I didn't. I'm glad I didn't see before seeing the movie.
That's interesting. There's a lot to be said. I have a friend who vehemently doesn't watch any trailers for anything, just for that reason. He likes to go into any film, regardless of what it may be. He doesn't want to watch any trailer for any film now, because his argument is that any trailer these days spoils the actual film. And I have to kind of agree with him to a certain degree. I mean, most people, if you watch a trailer for something, you kind of put two and two together, and like you're trying to break down. There's so much with the internet and everything nowadays. There's so much trying to break down, what's happening here, and Easter eggs that you can possibly see in trailers and stuff like that. So I do understand that there is a kind of a market for it. But I personally like to kind of see a film straight off the, not even considering what I'm going in to see, sort of thing. I think some of the best trailers, you get from the 70s that don't even tell you anything. They're almost like teaser trailer-esque in their kind of concept. I remember like the first Alien trailer. All it was like some stars coming towards you, and you had the egg, and then you had some like background noise and stuff like that, and that was it. Until like obviously more trailers come out towards nearer the date, but obviously they didn't have the internet back. Everything like that, so I suppose it's probably easier to get away with that. But yeah, so when so you kind of were spoiled firstly going in. So did you know the sort of not the themes as such, but there is, I mean, this is going to be a spoiler chat sort of thing, so we will be talking about things that happen in the film. Do they actually talk, like, did you show does it in the trailer, does it show the actual infinity pool as such in that regards of what the actual kind of the cloning aspect of things?
Yeah, well, I actually I didn't see the trailer, so I'm glad I didn't. But I watched it after, and it does. I would have been spoiled on the Infinity Pool because
Yeah.
it does show that whole sequence of you have a choice whether to take your punishment or you can clone yourself, and they spoil that in the trailer. So I'm so glad I didn't see the
Mm,
trailer.
that's actually quite interesting. Yeah, I
Mhm.
don't think as a selling point, I suppose it's one of those kind of things where some directors and whatnot don't actually get the choice of what is actually done in the trailer now because it's outsourced, it's kind of given to third-party companies and whatnot, or it's actually just kind of cobbled together and like it's like, oh, we're trying to get as much people in. Would you? I
Mhm.
mean, this is a. I would define this as an indie film. Um, so I mean, I mean, you're talking about so many different things on the table here, but there's so many kind of visceral as well that what you kind of add in, what do you add as tension.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's strange. That would be a hard trailer to do because effectively it's just four men or three men or whatever like walking across the plains trying to find this magic room type of thing, and they're like, it's also all like philosophical talking and like things that are just out there. There's a couple of action scenes, I guess, at the beginning, but yeah, it's a bit strange. So I guess that it's just a shame that that does happen so much now that you do get that.
Mhm.
But we start with James
Mhm.
and his wife Em at the resort, and my first kind of inkling that something wasn't quite right. I think the first words that he says is something along the lines of, "Where are we?" And my immediate thought was like, oh, this is going to be like some kind of not Groundhog Day, but some kind of looping sort of
Mm.
environment or something like that. Was that something that you kind of caught up with as well? Did you have any other thoughts on that kind of respect at the very beginning?
Yeah, I thought it was more of a like the indigenous people who live there. They were more of the danger because they have the one person comes in and kind of creates havoc for a few minutes. So you have the idea that outside the walls, you're kind of on your own, and they make sure to keep all the guests in the vicinity and on the other side of the wall. But when they do leave, it's a bad idea right away. And the tension between Em and James is pretty evident because she almost takes shots at him, being kind of like she's his charity for his books. And I wondered, what
She's making the
how do
bacon
you
in this
feel?
relationship. Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah. No, I mean,
how do you feel in these
it's
movies?
Um, like it was very evident that he's a writer that hasn't written anything for like 6 years, and that's
Yeah.
supposedly the reason why they've come to this resort for him to get over his writer's block, for him to get inspired by this resort. That's apparently we don't notice at the very beginning, but it's like for the very elite style class society, the rich, only the pure rich, and we find out through them talking that M's father is like this worldwide global publisher. If you think
Mhm.
of like, I'm sort of like a Jeff Bezos of the Amazon to like the publishing world. That's her father. So he's kind of married into the wealth. But you kind of get the feeling that he's trying to do this, kind of Bukowski, like I'm just this beatnik writer. We don't really find out much about what he wrote before, but it's like in that vein of like you get the feeling that he's trying to be this kind of like low key writer, this indie writer, but also at the same time he hasn't written anything for 6 years, and he probably won't, but he's been living off her, and there's just like
Mhm.
little digs, they're not barbed, I don't think, but there are certain things that she says that you do feel like the power dynamic of this relationship is that she holds all the power and the
Mhm.
finances, and he's just there to be a trophy husband, maybe, who knows. um
Yes.
but yeah, they meet Mia Goth's character,
Mhm.
Gabby, and her husband, and they immediately have this kind of rapport of she's a budding actress. um what there's a great scene. So they go at the very beginning, they go to they have this dinner, and she basically says that she's the best at what's the term? I can't remember what it's called now. It's like
failure,
making being able to fail correctly or something.
Yeah, something like that.
And Alexander Skarsgård's character goes like, "What do you mean?" And she goes like, "Well," she takes she takes a roll and gets a knife and goes, "Oops, I can't cut this. Oh, whoopsie!" And it's she does it so sublimely. And I will get into characters, the acting that was going through this, because I think this is probably, I mean, Mia Goth has been having a fantastic year, or past 2 years recently with X and Pearl, and now this, but this blew me away with her performance. Jay-Z, like at the end when she's like at the bus and everything like that when she has the gun, but like yeah, she was phenomenal in this. I thought she was great. But yeah, so she's basically, you get the feeling like whenever these type of films, we've seen a lot of like these type of films where you have this kind of couple that may or may not be having relationship issues. They come across this enigmatic other couple, and they're instantly drawn to them. And I kind of felt there's going to be something going on here with this kind of power couple and this other kind of these other people that may not be. And you can sort of see as they're going out, there's this weird tension that's happening between.
You can say that.
Well, when we get to the beach, yeah, there's a scene. So they go out of the compound, they're driving. They're having some drinks. They're having like a little picnic or something like that. And yeah, there's this palpable sort of tension in the air. You can't quite place it. You kind of get the feeling that maybe Mia Goth's character is going to be a muse for James. He goes to take a little piss break, and she just comes up behind him and just starts giving the old shove tuckle, or giving a little love pulling on the old snake charmer there, so to speak.
Yeah.
And we don't step away from the scene. Was that? I mean, you know, this partner at that time, and we both looked at each other, and I was like, that was something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised they went all the way with that scene, if so to speak.
Yeah. So then they go back in a car. It's nighttime now. I think Albin, sorry, pardon me. Albin turns around and says, "Oh, I've had too much to drink." So James takes the wheel, even though he's had probably as much to drink as Albin.
Yeah.
They're driving around, and he gets distracted. I think he gets distracted momentarily, but comes back, and there's just someone walking across, and James just runs into him, runs him down. And this is one of the indigenous people of the fictional state, sort of thing. So he gets out. This guy's clearly not getting up from this. And it's interesting because Mia Goth's character takes control now.
Yeah.
She's like, "Get back in the car. The police find us. They're going to torture us. They're going to do all kinds of bad things. We need to leave. We need to get back now." You know, Steve?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're breaking up a little bit.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, sorry. I know I'm just breaking up all over the place. So yeah, they get back in the car. He takes James and Em are freaking out. They're like, "We need to leave. Get your passport. We need to go now." That's when James finds out that he's lost his passport. Where's his passport? Who knows? Then are they actually called anything? The guards of this place? I'm not sure if they're called, like, they're basically some like elite force but the police basically turn up and say, you know, you're coming in to be questioned now. And this was the sort of second part now where I thought like a lot of the inside scenes as such, there's very kind of like Russian style communist sort of block environments, and I just found it really striking, as opposed to the kind of very picturesque, scenic resort that we just saw, to now go into this like blocky cement World War II-esque communist like rooms. I thought was very striking and very juxtaposing between the two scenes, and it really worked for me. So he's kind of in this interrogation room, and the main guard captain is like saying to him, you know, they've like your wife's already spilled the beans, like there's nothing you can do here really. And then he explains the concept of what happens here. Essentially, on this island, you can, if you have enough money, make a clone of yourself, so that the resident, like if you've murdered someone, murdered one of the indigenous people of this country, what can happen is you can make a clone for yourself, and that clone will then be killed off unceremoniously, like either attached to a pillow. You get the kind of the family coming in, they can stab them up, whatever you want, sort of thing. I thought that was crazy, but crazy good, in the respect of I didn't see it coming. I was like sitting there going, wow. You know what I thought at that point there, Steve? You know, Lethal Weapon 2, when you have the diplomatic immunity. I thought of that. I thought of that kind of like, this is where the kind of, I guess, if you will, the kind of higher upper echelons of society can pay for, basically you can do any crime and you can get away with it because you can make yourself a clone, and the clone can effectively take the consequences for your actions. So I wanted to get your thoughts on this point. So what did you think of this point in time when James wakes up and he realizes that there is a clone of him now, or it's basically there's a clone of you and your clone will take the consequences of your actions?
Yeah, I mean, just imagine seeing yourself be killed, watching the whole thing. And I wondered, I guess the families of the victim are okay with killing the clone and not the actual person who killed their loved one. That seemed a little weird, but I guess just going through the motions of killing someone that looked like them, they didn't seem to care too much that it was a clone. But it did look like a gulag kind of thing. Like it went from bright and sunny and beaches to this, like you said, like this really dark and dingy, overcast type of environment. But I thought it was a great, and you wouldn't expect anyone to be cloned in a building like that, because the equipment they have looks old, like it doesn't look very modern. So you get the impression this has been going on for a long time.
Yeah, I did kind of think like there's a scene where yeah, sorry. There is a scene where they get Alexander Skarsgård's character, and they put this I'm not sure if you're familiar, there's a game that you can actually put the sort of the teeth, and you have to kind of say words, and it's really difficult. I did laugh at that point because I did think to myself, he's wearing the actual like the guard thing from this particular game, but he just basically gets a skull cap, and you're basically put into a room where there's like this red goo kind of starts to, you know, come up and I guess overwhelm your body, sort of thing. I did think personally when he woke up, I was thinking, is this going to be one of those type of films where we don't know who the clone is? Yeah. And that was something I was thinking for about approximately 2.5 minutes, because after that we're brought into another room, where the clone, or what we perceive to be the clone, and this could be one of the ambiguous things of the movie, the kind of loss of self, if you will, the metaphorical loss of self. It could be, and this is an argument, I'm not saying I believe this, but this is an argument that you could have, is that the real James is tied to a post. And then you have one of the, as you said, like one of the family members come in and just brutally stabs repeatedly. And any kind of like David Cronenberg fans will know that he doesn't shy away from the kind of the body horror in that respect. And you do see, you know, some visceral scenes of stabbings going on here. But we kind of, it does this kind of like red herring fake out moment where you think, I think at this point, you do think this is the real James. And then we kind of pan back and we see they're all sitting like benches. And I thought this was really interesting as well, because you see James, we pull in on James, and there's a little wry smirk on his face that kind of comes up. This horrific act of like, you know, you're watching yourself be killed. Even if it is a clone, this clone retains the memories. And I think there is a moment where they say, the guard says beforehand, like, this clone retains the memories of what you've done, of who you are, and they're just being killed in front of this other person. At this point, I did think, okay, so is this going to be one of those films where it's like the real person's being killed and now the clone has taken over? Or is it going to be like, is this the way it goes? Because when they wake up, they're all groggy and we don't really know. And it's like, oh, I don't know what's going on here. But this is, I guess this is one of the metaphorical themes of the losing of oneself. And essentially, this is one of the themes of the film, I guess, is that, you know, because this isn't the first time. Well, this is the first time for James, but we later find out this isn't the first time for Gabby and her husband. This is the first time for her and some of her elite friends that this has happened to. In fact, what we then find out is this debauchery of like these rich people that basically use this island to do exactly what they want to do, with no consequence, because they can have clones that get killed off, so they can commit the most heinous crime and get away with it because their clone will take the fall, essentially. There's even a scene later on where James is introduced to the elite social class type people, and I think one of them introduces themselves as like a vampire. They're like, "Oh, you're one of the vampires now. You're one of us in that respect." In terms of like the dead vampires, which I thought was quite fun. Yeah, so we follow on from James. Like he's just watched himself be brutally killed, or his clone. Sorry. Him and his wife go back to the hotel room, and she's like, "I'm out of here. I'm done. We are leaving. Marines, we are leaving." Yeah, he forgets his passport. He just forgets his passport. I will be honest. There was a point where I was saying, because I saw the little smirk on his face earlier, I thought, did he lose his passport, or is he now being sort of weirdly indoctrinated into this weird fetish world of like being able to see yourself get killed over repeatedly, or, you know, see yourself be killed, and he's drawn into the world of Mia Goth's character and whatnot, sort of thing. What do you think about that, Steve?
I thought I thought he enjoyed it, and I thought he felt a sense of freedom knowing that it kind of like a rebirth. And we don't know who the clone is, so I felt like he almost had a fresh start, and he just wanted, kind of like he was bored in his marriage or in his life, and maybe a little too comfortable, and it kind of came across like these uber rich people want some kind of excitement, and this is their excitement because they're bored with, when you can do anything, you can buy anything. I mean, what do you do for fun? You go out and you clone yourself and watch yourself get killed just every year. Yeah, I thought he felt a sense of release.
Yeah,
that he could like do whatever he wanted to do. He didn't felt constrained by his writing career, his writer's block, or his wife who takes digs at him. He just felt like, I can do whatever I want. There's really no consequences, because she seems like an endless amount of money too.
Yeah, it's never kind of like quoted as to like if there's an extent, but we do get the sense that she is pretty much an endless ATM for him, for James's character. So he basically says to her, like, "Look, you go, you leave. I'm going to stay. I'm going to sort out my passport. It's going to probably take me a week or two." So she's like, "Okay, honey." kiss off, bye. And he gets drawn into the world that that Gabby and Albin present. And this is the kind of point where, they bring him to their friends, this ghastly lot of friends who essentially do what they want, get away with anything they want. And I think the first act, what they do is like a kind of like a kind of like, not a hazing, but it's like a kind of ritualistic sort of what would you call it when you at university and you kind of get brought into a
fraternity,
like when you get like a fraternity, like isn't there like a ritualistic sort of, usually you're one of us now, but you need to do something, like you need to go throw toilet rolls over the trees, and let's go beat up a tortoise that's, I don't know, something along those lines. But they bring him to one of the police officers' house, I believe it is, and they're wearing these masks. And these masks in themselves are very grotesque in their nature. Yeah. They're very like deformed. They're almost like burnt flesh. Some of them look like. And once again, I was kind of struck with the metaphorical state of wearing masks, of doing a kind of heinous act, whether it be, these people are putting on masks, but they are themselves the masks because they know they're going to be cloned. So whatever they do is their kind of avatar, for example, will take the fall for this. But you still need to wear a mask to kind of commit some of these acts. And that's where James starts to kind of lose himself. I think he already kind of lost himself, I think, at the very beginning when his clone took the first fall for him. But now he knows what the game is. Now he knows, as you were saying, like he feels reborn. He feels like this kind of probably fiery passion that he didn't feel beforehand with his, like, for the 60 years that he last wrote his book. So they go to I think it's one of the police officers' houses, I think, from memory.
Police chief, I think, right?
The police chief, yeah. And I think they're just there to intimidate him. Is that right? But it kind of turns a bit, it goes a bit south.
Yeah.
So,
It almost seemed like a hardcore Renaissance fair, like a role-playing game that they would, like a weekend or like a holiday thing that they would go and like role play, because they take on this other persona together and have this club where they would just go and do whatever they want. So it almost felt like their own little fair, like Renaissance fair, like they would role play and they would do whatever they want. But I wondered what the masks, because the masks seemed like they were, they've been around for a while, that they were like relics, or they were ancient or antiques. So I wondered if the infinity pool is a natural resource that they're tapping into, and this has been going on for a long time, and these masks have some other meaning to the people on the island, and it's almost like a mockery of, we're wearing these old masks, we can do what we want, and we're going to get away with it, and we're wearing the masks that probably they hold sacred while we do it.
Yeah, no, definitely. As you said, like, there's a kind of theme going throughout as well, that the indigenous people are kind of referred to as barbarians and savages, whereas the actual barbarians and savages are the people in the resort that are doing this. Walls. And like, I think Cronenberg lays out the story very well up to this kind of point as well, because like, at the first, you are thinking, okay, they're going out, like when they first go out the compound, you see these barbed wire fences, and your natural reaction is like, okay, they're essentially being protected from the outside, whereas maybe it's really the other way around. Like the zoo is on the inside, not on the outside. So I really like that, and it's that kind of small sort of slice of information that's getting like fed to you, sort of thing, throughout. So yeah, the attack on the chief of police goes south. Some people get shot. Albin gets shot in the leg. They limp back to the compounds, and yeah, once again they get taken back to the gulag, as you were saying, sort of thing. And this was I actually did think this was once again another kind of gotcha sort of moment, but like they're talking and they're going, "Oh, everything's going to be fine. Don't worry. We've done this loads of times in the past." So then the kind of police, you know, come in and like bring them up, and they're starting to go like, "Oh, you've had your chance, and now this is you're getting it," sort of thing. And you're thinking, "Oh, actually, is this a turn of events where they're actually the real people are actually going to get the punishment?" But no, as all the group are getting once again butchered by the people, you pan around and they're all like, they're cheering. They're actually at this point now cheering. It's all like James is there, you know, Gabby's there, Alvin's there, all the other friends are there, and they're cheering on like this is like some kind of weird sport now.
Yeah, almost like a fetish. Yeah,
and yeah, and I think at this point we get to. Yeah, we get to James as now completely losing himself. He is becoming almost feral-like in his. He's waking up and he's just basically at the resort, but he's completely drunk. They're all drunk, and he's like spitting grapes at other guests that have nothing to do. And I've got to say, Alexander Skarsgård plays his role really well too. Like I loved his performance in this. I mean, I don't know if you've seen like his IMDb page, but he seems like a fun character anyway in real life. He's just basically like this kind of top, and he's just in his pants kind of thing. So yeah, he went full out for this. Like he's gone through all the ranges of emotion during this. We get to a kind of moment where he's obviously, there's another scene as well where Gabby's character, Mia Goth's character, introduces him to like this drug. It's like a kind of what do you call it? Like a
hallucinogen,
sort of like a hallucinogenic, yeah. And it's meant to be like, you know, she's kind of the devil on the shoulder, essentially, that's saying, you know, if you take this drug, you'll completely be reborn, and you'll completely see things, and you'll see yourself in a new light. And there's this one scene in particular that I think, I mean, there's a lot of scenes in this film that I really enjoy, but one of them is where they bring in the police captain and he's hooded up, and they drop him on the floor, and they say to James, like, right, this is your initiation. This is where you get to do what you want. And he's going through all this like range of like build himself up, like pumping himself up for this, to the point where he starts peeing on this guy. He's like stalking around like a kind of animalistic feral creature, but it's all a prank. They pull off the hood, and it's actually Gabby says like, ha ha ha, we asked the police chief if we could do a favor, and we've cloned you again. And now this is your clone. And now you see this kind of James clone character, supposedly character clone, because we still don't know. We still don't know. Who's on the floor, his nose is split. He's all beaten up, he's all bloody, and that kind of sets the other James, like who we perceive to be the real James, off. And you know, now he's thinking, maybe this is too much. Like, I won't be able to kill myself. I can watch other people killing myself, but I can't do it. And it all goes like, I feel like there's this whole Freudian like id, ego, super ego thing at play that my tiny brain won't be able to kind of comprehend. But what were your thoughts on that, Steve?
Did you see that coming? That when they brought him in, when they told him it was a police chief, did you see that? Did you think it would be him?
I'm always skeptical when there's a scene when someone's brought in with a bag on their head. I'll be honest with you. I've watched too many films where it's a kind of rope-a-dope moment where it's like, oh, I didn't know it would be him. I thought it was going to be his wife, to be honest with you. I thought it was going to be like, because when she says she's going, we don't see her now. And it's been a finite amount of time that she's been away, that I thought actually it's going to be his wife, because I thought throughout this whole thing, they've been setting James up. And it's very evident from the start when he kills the person from the car at the beginning, and she takes. That's when I was starting to think maybe this is a bit of a setup sort of scheme. I didn't know why, I didn't know how, But until that person was brought in with the bag on their head, I thought it was the wife at that time. I didn't think it was going to be the police chief, definitely not. But I didn't realize it was going to be himself. So it did surprise me, but it surprised me in a different way. It surprised me in the way that I thought, this is like a kind of, I mean, imagine you're in that scenario and you then see yourself being unsheathed and you're like, now you have to kill yourself. Like, mind-blowing stuff going on here. But yeah, who did you think it was the police chief or?
I thought it was him because of his build and his length, like how tall he is. He's kind of hard to miss, but I would have loved if it was the wife. That would have been great to almost isolate him even more and to pull him into the group. That'd be great. I would love that. I didn't even think of that. That's a great one.
I mean, you are right when it's maybe I wasn't thinking of the actual logistics of the body type and like this is a guy in here and everything like that. I just thought I saw a bag on the head and I thought, it's got to be the wife or something like that. But yeah, he runs away and then he tries to leave. Is that right?
Yeah, he tries to go.
Am I missing it? I think I'm missing something here, but
yeah, he tries to leave. Well, he panics and he doesn't want to go through with it, but then I think he ends up staying, but the next morning he leaves, right? He tries to leave.
Yes. So yeah, he gets on a coach that goes obviously to the harbor or the heliport or wherever they're going. But Gabby and Co don't want him to leave, and they just pull up in this like Cadillac. They're just like driving. She's got a gun. And this is one of those great scenes where Mia Goth just shines.
Yeah.
She can play this like superb manic sort of character when she needs to. And they essentially hijack the coach that he's on, pulls it over, shoots, and says like, if you come out, then everything's fine. He comes out and he's essentially led in front. They're slowly going back to the resort. He's walking in front in his bare feet. You can see the sweat glistening off him, and she's just on the hood of the caddy with like some champagne and some grapes with the gun. And this is when she kind of reveals that actually he hasn't been brought into this group. She mocks like his previous book. One of the I forgot to mention this, so apologies, but when she first meets James's character, she says that she's read his book, that she loves his book. And that's almost like a kind of massive ego boost to him. And now she's just like completely decimates him in this scene where he's walking like in front of this car, like this really like tail between the legs. And then she starts really ripping into him, saying that, his writing is crap and like everything that he's achieved in his life has been through his wife because he's married into this, just essentially telling him the real facts, the truth. And he's a broken man now. He is broken down by this, but he manages to escape. He kind of like scuttles off into the woods and finds this one of the like indigenous people's huts where he essentially he collapses, I believe, and they bring him back to health. And but it's not too long before Gabby turns up again, and you have this probably one of the other iconic scenes in this. She once again has this fervent attitude of wanting James to kill himself. So yet they have yet another. I don't know if this is the same clone that they had before, or if this is indeed once again the real James. This is once again it's ambiguous enough that you could probably write dissertations about Infinity Pool. That's what I really love about this film. It's such one of those films that you, after the credits have rolled, you walk away from this and you have so many questions. She brings out another James in a leash, like a dog, and this James doesn't appear to have any vocabulary, any kind of, I wouldn't say intelligence over. He's just basically acting like a dog. The clone is acting like a dog. Now, you could argue that maybe they've got a clone that they didn't really get the ingredients right, so to speak. So maybe this is a clone that is just like almost beastly in nature. You could argue that maybe this is the original James that has just been so beaten down by everything that's happened, that he's kind of regressed into this primordial state in that respect. You know, there's a lot of options here. It could have been the other James that was cloned is just being completely beat down upon, and so is regressed into this helpless state that all he can do is be submissive to Gabby. But he brings out the dog, and she basically says, like, this is your time now. This is your moment that you need to kind of take control and be a man and essentially kill yourself. What were your thoughts at this point?
Well, I thought he goes from the highest of highs, right, to doing whatever he wants to do, to the lowest of lows pretty quickly, because she, like you said, she takes a lot of shots at him and tells him, kind of doesn't hold back, and he starts to realize that he's just another one of their playthings. He's not part of the group. He's just someone they're toying with, or at least that's what she tells him. But I did wonder if this is the hazing that they all go through. Like, is this kind of the just the ringer that they send all of them through to earn their, like, cult behavior? You earn your way in. Everyone has to go through this. Everyone has to kill themselves at the end, kind of the last step before the season's over, to kind of be led into the group, and that's how you earn your place on the team, kind of. But yeah, I was curious with him killing himself. I assumed that was the person he thought was a police chief that was just beaten down, but he looked like he had been there for a while. So I wondered if that was a clone from before that they had been preparing for him this whole time.
It's interesting that you say that. Yeah, like with the other group, because they, from memory, I could be wrong, but from memory, I don't believe they at any time say that they've had to go through this hazing sort of procedure. But at the beginning, when they first meet him, they do say, like, oh, we've all been through this.
Yeah.
You're led to believe that they've all been through this in terms of, i.e., they've cloned themselves and they've seen themselves die. But there is this like ritualistic sort of element to it, this cult-like sort of, until you do this, you become one of us. And I think that's really interesting that you picked up on that, because I was thinking that myself as well. But then you have the shot where the real James regresses to a kind of childlike state. Gabby comes along and offers him her breast to kind of like suckle on, essentially, like suckle on the teat, like you would do an infant child. And once again, it goes back. There's another theme I think going out throughout with, like, you know, domination, submission, those type of themes of this woman in particular. And it comes back to at the very beginning, like I mentioned, like with when they run over the person, she takes control. She takes control immediately. So, you know, like she is the dominant figure in this whole film, essentially. Whereas James is the submissive one. But like there's an element of like where he begins that he is happy to be the submissive one, and at this point, when he's regressed to like a childlike state by sucking on the teat sort of thing, he is. I thought personally at that point it was a bit too on the nose, and my partner that was watching with me, she kind of said as well, like, you know, I think that's a bit too much in terms of like the imagery of like trying to ascertain what's actually happening. I thought, yeah, you're right. If he killed his clone version, and then I don't know, something else would have happened, I think that probably would have been better. But like in a film like this, I suppose it makes sense to do something like that.
Yeah, I thought it was a little too much too. But I kind of saw it as him another rebirth, and he was at his most vulnerable and helpless after killing himself, and her doing that was kind of like a way to nurse him back, or to as like an infant almost again, that he was another rebirth, but this time he's starting all over again. And I wondered why they picked him and not the wife, because the wife is the uber rich person. So I wondered why they chose him and not her.
I did think this. My personal opinion of that is that they picked him because they knew he was the weaker one, that he would be more susceptible to their ways. And I suppose this is the kind of thing, the reason why they took them out on the car and the caddy at the very beginning is I guess they wanted to see how they reacted afterwards. And the fact that he stayed and she didn't, I think was their kind of like, okay, he's the mark, because they both could have left, and that would have been it. That would have been the end of it. That would have been the end of their fun and games, and they probably then would have targeted another couple of that resort, if that makes sense. That's how I perceived it anyway.
Yeah.
But the fact that James stayed, and then afterwards she was like, oh, okay, he stayed. That's interesting. Let's see how far we can take this person. Because I believe you're right. I think, like, you know, part of this is a kind of a rebirthing effect. Part of it is how much they can push someone, I guess. It's like that kind of bullying thing. I think that you probably, you know, when you're really young and like with your peers, and like someone's like, "Ooh, do this thing," and you're like, "No, I'm not going to do this thing," but you'd be cool if you do this thing. It's almost like that sensibility of, you know, trying to adhere to the peer pressure, I guess. But he's also, the thing is, like, he's tantalized by it as well, isn't he?
Yeah.
Like you know, you can see throughout the whole film, like from that first smirk that you get when he sees himself be killed the first time, there's an intrigue there. There's something alien that he hasn't experienced before that he wants to kind of involve himself in. There's also, I think a lot of people, I think, go too much. There's an orgy scene throughout. So when there's the kind of the drugs that are being inhaled and stuff like that, there is an orgy scene. A lot of people had negative comments on this. I think it works within the scope of the film, of the scope of his effectual structural breakdown as a person, in terms of, you know, you can't. You've seen films that in the past that have dealt with identity and the breakdown of identity and the ego and the id and stuff like that. And I think the kind of drugs just helps lube that a little bit, sort of thing. Like you know from like the first time he meets Mia Goth's character that there's a spark there, there's a sexual interest, and whether, you know, she's going to be something to him or he needs to be something to her, you need that kind of element to happen. It's very well done as well, but I think any kind of like drug infused scene in films is very hard to kind of encapsulate on film, if that makes sense. What did you think about that?
I thought I can't see people saying it went on for too long. I think it did go on for a little bit longer than I expected, but it was a way for him to lose his inhibitions and to appeal to him sexually. That's probably another reason why they picked him, knowing that he would be attracted to Mia Goth's character. So that was another way to kind of break him down and to have him just lose control and to just let go of all his preconceptions and just feel more comfortable with them. And they were all, seemed like they were all into it, but I thought that was just another form of control for him to let his guard down and to feel like he's part of the group because they're bringing him in. You know, to include him in this almost like ritualistic orgy that they had going on, and of course he's gonna enjoy himself, so they're gonna pull him in even farther. But I can't see people having an issue with it, but I thought they did enough with the colors and the kind of masking what's really going on. I thought they did enough of that to not make it too graphic.
Yeah, no, definitely. So then we hard cut to them leaving, or we find out, sorry, that James had his passport the whole time, and I was like, yeah, I'm vindicated. I knew he had his passport the whole time, the bastard. But we go back to like their holiday's over now, and I thought this was once again a really interesting part. James has gone through something, like, you know, he's really gone through the ringer in this. And we're on this coach going back to the airport. And what I loved about this is all the friends of like Gabby's friends and everything are just like talking like, oh, but by the way, when we get back, we're gonna have to pick up the laundry. We're gonna have to, all these trivial, mundane things that, you know, you do when you're, you know, when the end of a holiday happens, you're like thinking about, right, we're gonna have a day of traveling, and we get back, then we're gonna have to do this on the Monday because it's Monday again. We're back to the grind. All this, it's really a start, and we just focused on James. And it's almost like that. The Graduate sort of moment where we see James at the back of the bus when he's just sitting there like completely out of sorts. And I think it's the realization then that for him anyway, that these people are just not who he dreamt that he thought they were. They are normal people, but they're people of a kind of 0.1% that can do this and disassociate themselves from doing it, because for them this is a holiday. This is their yearly thing that they do. They're so used to it now that they indoctrinate other people and then effectively mess up their lives. We're at this airport, and I thought this was the coldest, like this was the most brutal, domineering thing that she could have. Like she just basically turns and goes, hopefully see you next year. Bye. And then just walks off. And it's like, I was like going, oh, I mean, after everything, it's almost sociopathic, essentially, is how I felt. I think her character is played to be a sociopath. She has there's nothing there. It's just like you are nothing to me. And you're just like a random person who now I can just turn around and go, maybe see you next year if you turn up. Maybe. And then just that's it. Not a handshake, not a hug, nothing like, you know what I mean? Like everything that they've gone through. I mean, I could be perceiving it completely wrong. What were your thoughts on that, Steve?
I wondered if that was another test to see if he will come back next year, if he will be part of the group, and they put them through all these different trials and they see if they can make it out of the other end, and then at the end it's like, maybe we'll see you again. If not, then whatever. So if they do show back up, then maybe they're part of the group. If not, but it almost reminded me of almost like Westworld, when they go into Westworld and they kind of do whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
And they leave and it's just a vacation that they kind of just let loose and, act out however they want to. And then they go home. They kind of like their playground. They just do what they want.
Act out their deepest, darkest fantasies in that respect, and then go home and everything's back to normal.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And this is, I guess this is the clincher for the film. We see James doesn't go back home. We see that he's well, does he go back home? Is that his clone? He's just sitting under like an umbrella. It's raining now. It's like monsoon season or whatever in this resort. And we just see a version of James, whether it's the real James or his clone, or whether it may be sitting under one of the carousel sort of thing, and just sitting there. Just, is he waiting for the next year? Is he going to live there? Like, we obviously know that his financial status is from his wife, and we kind of get the feeling that if he stays there, she's not going to supply him the money that he needs to stay there, because that's ridiculous, right? So could you argue that the clone version, not the feral clone that was killed, because maybe that was a separate clone, and now I'm deep diving into it now.
Yeah.
But maybe there was I think maybe there was three Jameses. The James that was in the hoods, that the police chief was like, they said, we asked him to pardon me. The feral James that was like the dog version on the leash and everything, and then the real James. Could it be that he sent a clone James back home to be with the wife and everything, and he's like at the resort and he can live out his darkest, deepest fantasies?
Well, now that you mentioned that, I wonder if the people on the bus going to the airport aren't clones too.
Yeah. That could be the whole thing. Like, it's very open for interpretation, but that's what I love about it as well, because it could just be, I mean, maybe we're looking too much into it. Maybe it is the kind of case of, the clones are all dead and it's the real people going back home. That's option A. But option B is, as you said, like on the coach, the Gabbies, and that they're the clones as well, going back to their like mundane life, and the other versions are enjoying their best way of things. Maybe it's a kind of perpetual, like the whole film is called Infinity Pool, so maybe it's the kind of case of the real one gets killed off and the clones then become a lessened version of themselves, and that's why they become such a sort of feeding off their what's the when you make a clone of something so much that it becomes like a almost like a Pell version of itself. And maybe that's what's happening. Maybe the real person is being killed off all the time, and it's the clone that then becomes the real one. And then, but that one gets cloned, so therefore you clone and clone someone so much that it becomes like this inordinate jelly style thing. Maybe that's it. That's option 2. I don't know. Like that's what I love about some of Cronenberg's films. Is like with Possessor. The loss of identity is a big theme on that as well, where you have this trained killer who essentially enters the mind of someone who is then living this different life. And I think that's one of Brandon Cronenberg's, one of his like motifs, is to kind of take identity and essentially eschew it. What we perceive as normal, what does anyone perceive as normal, is something that I'm always intrigued about. So I mean that's the infinity pool for the story as it itself. Like, tell me, Steve, what were your pros and cons of the film? What did you like about it? What did you dislike about it?
I liked all that we talked about. I thought all of it was really well done. I liked the exploration of self and losing yourself and reborn, and this almost like cult on the island, and the contrast, like you said, at the beginning, you think that they're keeping the savages out, but they're really keeping the savages in.
Yeah,
and it's almost like the rich's playground to do what they want.
yeah.
And the indigenous people actually take him in and nurse him back to health. I thought the third act, when they pull him out of the bus, I thought it kind of got a little, I don't know, there was some, thought pacing was a little off there. Like it felt a little strange, but
I agree.
Other than that, I loved it. I thought everything else was great. And I love these kind of movies that we can talk about and say, well, are the clones really do the clones go home back to everyday life, to back to the grind, or are the clones, are those the originals, or is it a clone every time? Is Gabby a sociopath because she's been cloned so many times, and this is the clone, like you were saying, this is the 20th clone, and this is watered down, not all their kind of version of her that we would have started with. And how long has this been going on? Another thing is,
well, that's it as well. Like, are they, we're led to understand that Gabby and Alban sort of like have actually coming back to this place, and like, is that what, for 5 years, for 10 years? It's never really established. We're just led to believe that they come back to this place every year. So yeah, that's kind of frightening to think about as well. Like, how long have they been doing this for? And if it is indeed like the clones that are if it's the clones that are staying at the resort, if they are, or is the clones going back home, sort of thing, then when they come back, is their mind even more deranged? Are they just thinking of like different things that they want to do when they come back here? Yeah, I mean, I think when you start playing, like when you start picking, they're obviously, I read into it as well that the group are like, when James is introduced to the kind of the elite people at the house, and they're talking about their, there's one woman that says, for example, oh, they'll take you, they'll imprison you for anything, for sodomy, and she's like, which is what I'm known for. And they go through everyone goes through their lists of reasons why they're there. It kind of just, it's like how far do you go until you essentially become lost, in the respect of like, they've obviously killed a lot of people since they've been there. Like, how far do you go? How far is far enough? It's interesting.
and I think there's like a money machine in the government building. There's like, there's like an ATM. And it seems like almost like the government encourages this to happen because they're probably making a ton of money.
Yeah, I did like the police chief in this, because when we're first introduced to him, you do think there's this like almost Gestapo, as you said, like kind of vibe going on. But you kind of realize when he's talking, it's almost like a kind of salesman's pitch, in terms of like, you could do this, but also if you have enough money, you can get away with it if you want to do that as well. It's like he's been he's been harsh, but also he's sort of like saying, but there's a way out for you if you want it, and this is how it is. And like, yeah, you're very right with the ATM machine. I did notice that as well. It's like, well, just convenient in this kind of like cement block of this like Soviet era style. You have this like ATM machine, and like the wads of cash that come out as well. It's like, yeah. You can tell that there's a lot of wallets being filled from this. And I think that's also to say as well, because we do go back to the chief of police's house. It's like a mansion that he's living in.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, he's obviously reaping the benefits of this as well, to the detriment of the actual people. So, yeah.
You mentioned the people. They're really the victims in all this because they're the ones being killed and being. They're just. Oh, yeah. They're even on a lower rung. They're just the playthings of the uber rich and the government. Yeah. They're really the ones taking the brunt of this, and they live in like rags, and they look like they're barely getting by. Like they live in squalor, and so they're really the victims in this whole thing. What did you like or dislike about it?
So yeah, as I said, like I liked the themes that were at play. Because I also like watching films where there are certain themes when you don't necessarily notice them straight off the bat. You kind of like you watch something visually and you kind of think, what am I relating this to? In a kind of societal way, or a kind of political kind of way, or if this is just like this isn't like a popcorn film. This isn't like a film that you go to see just to kind of like put your brain off. This is a film that you kind of think about. So I think for me, it kind of started when James first gets cloned. That for me is when things got kind of switched on in terms of, okay, this has become a different film for me now. Because everything up until then, for me, was more of a mystery. And what I mean by that is like, we know like that James is there for his writing thing, but it always came back to me. Like the first thing he said was along the lines of like, where are we? And you could sort of perceive that in a kind of his marriage, the state of his marriage, the state of where they are, or you could perceive it as this possibly isn't the first time he's done, like this could be his clone. Like the first James that we're introduced to isn't like the real James, it's a clone. I don't know, like that kind of stuff always makes me think, okay, this is where we're going with this. You have the kind of the sexual element, the domination, the submission of James and Mia Goth's character, and how he's allowing himself to become lost in this. And I think in the kind of the society that we live in today, you see all these kind of YouTube videos of, like say, for example, Jordan Peterson, Andrew Tate, and like, feminism is all this kind of stuff that's going on. And then you have this, this play between the two characters, delves into it a little bit, I guess. And then you also have the kind of element of the kind of the higher echelons, the kind of social elite, and obviously how that's prevalent today in our today's society. So you have all those things, which I really like. I don't like being preached to in any films. I don't like when it's on the nose. I don't think this film did that in that respect. I think this was one of those kind of like I love Possessor, for example. I am going to check out Antiviral because I do want to kind of see that. I love that seems to have more of a kind of what people will do to find fame and glory, I guess. Pardon me? If it's about people wanting to get the kind of same diseases as celebrities and stuff. But yeah, I do feel like there is a lot of identity crisis. Like, and his father, David Cronenberg, as well, dealt with this a lot in his kind of films as well. And there's a lot of stuff to unpack here. And what I love about any kind of film is coming out of it and essentially having questions. It's one of those kind of films, like if you went to see this with your friends, you'd come out and you'd go like, look, we need to go to the pub, or we need to go to like have a sit down and just discuss this. It's not like a see you later, we'll meet again. Like this is, we need to discuss what's going on here. And what you're saying there, like there were some parts that you were saying that I was like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that myself. So it's always like one of those films where if someone takes a piece out of it and has their interpretation, it's always great to kind of hear what that interpretation is. What I didn't like, as you mentioned, the third act did seem I'm not going to say rushed, but it did seem a little bit. It seemed like they were building to something like this crescendo that they were building to, and it didn't seem to kind of deliver on that. The whole part where, as I said, like when he's suckling on the teat, that was the moment where it was like, that's a bit too much on the nose. I don't know what else could have been done to kind of signify this either rebirth or regression or whatever it may have been, but I don't think that was it. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed it more than I disliked it. There wasn't any the scenes of, for example, I'm not one of those kind of people who squirms away from kind of body horror. Even in Possessor sort of thing, there's a scene where someone's fingers are getting cut off as well, and it's quite graphic. Like these are quite graphic scenes, but also at the same time, I think realistic sort of scenes as well, if that makes sense. Not when it, maybe that shows my macabre sense of style, but it's not a kind of way that makes you think. Like, I'm just trying to think of something else at the top of my head that would be gratuitous. It's not gratuitous, I don't think. It's more as it is. Like, obviously the scene where she's masturbating him, like you just see this like KY jelly all on the stones. Was that necessary? Probably not. But does it give the sense of, the moment that they're in? Maybe. Like, it's one of those ones. So I think there will be people that will be put off by some of the scenes at play here. I loved it. I love the film. This is one of my best films of 2022. Was this 2023 or 2022?
23.
23. So the best films of the year so far for me. Because I think there's just a lot of pap out there at the moment. There's a lot of trying
franchises.
to franchises, remakes, reimagings, reboots, anything. It's ridiculous how when you have an original IP, it just goes to show that there are still original ideas out there. Has the cloning thing been done before? Of course it has. Has the social elitism thing been done before? Of course it has. Has the whole we can replace your mind wholesale for you been done before? Of course it has. But when you have all these different elements and you kind of shove them in together, that is done so sublimely that Cronenberg does with this, then I think it's a great film. It's a great film. I think people should check it out if they haven't. For me personally, it kind of flew under the radar. I don't know if that was a marketing thing or if it was just a kind of case of this came out, and because it's kind of like it has that kind of indie kind of cult sort of like vibe to it, not many people would have known about it. But I definitely think people should check this out. I think it's something that you'll be thinking about long after the credits have rolled.
I do like. I shouldn't say I liked the KY jelly scene or the scene at the beach, but it does set the bar, and fairly early on, we're not afraid to push the envelope. So if this is bothering you, then you're going to be in for a long movie. So in one sense, I kind of appreciate it because that they're not going to shy away from graphic scenes. So it lets you know pretty quick, like what kind of movie you're in for.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's kind of wrapping it up for us, Steve, unless you've got like anything else you want to add, or you want to sort of anything else that you thought about the film that I prattled on about that haven't mentioned, or
no, I think we covered everything. Mia Goth just has this presence, doesn't she? That whenever she's on screen, she's
definitely.
I don't know, something. I don't know what it is. I can't explain what it is. Obviously, she's attractive, but it's more than that. She has this presence. When she's on screen, you just can't help but know she's there.
Like definitely, like as I said, like Alexander Skarsgård and her, like there's a chemistry between them that is such a. I don't know how to describe it. Yes, there is that whole sense of, you can see at the very beginning that he's attracted to her, but she holds all the cards in this film. Like she definitely holds the cards emotionally, physically, and she, as you said, like she is a presence. I first came across her on X.
X.
Yeah, that was, I think, I may have seen her in something else before that, but I think X was my first, like, and then Pearl, which weirdly I didn't enjoy as much as X.
Hmm.
Just I thought it was a bit more. The pacing of it was a lot. It was a bit of a slow burn until obviously certain things happen. But then with Infinity Pool, yeah, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of her this year and obviously next year as well in the years to come. Yeah, I think she's great. I think she's fantastic. I can't praise her enough for her performance in this. And Alexander Skarsgård as well. Like as I said, like he goes through the ringer in this film. There's a lot of I mean, you can't. It seems at the moment you can't really kind of fall over but see a Skarsgård in a film of some
Yeah.
type or another. But no, he's brilliant in this as well.
Yeah.
Like from the repressed, sort of like submissive to the feral to the ludicrous to the dejected. Like he goes through all the ranges in this film. Whatever emotion you can emote, like he goes through it in this, I believe. So yeah, all praises to them, definitely. Like deserved of some awards, I think, but I don't think this will be on the Oscars this year.
No, I don't think so. But like this and The Northman, those are two films that he's done recently that I thought he did a great job in.
I still haven't seen The Northman yet, but I hear good things.
Yeah, I have thoughts about overall it was good, but yeah,
Did it make you want to be like a Viking, Steve?
No.
No.
Not at all. No.
Okay. So Steve, tell us where we can find you, where to reach out to you, like what are you doing? What's on your plate at the moment?
I have too much on my plate. But first, I want to thank you for having me. Thanks for having me on and talking about this one. Is one of my favorites of the year too. But if you're looking for me, I can be found on YouTube at Steve Talks Books or Steve Talks Movies. Those are the best places, or pagetwoing.com.
Great stuff. All right, guys. Well, thank you for watching this, and we'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.
The way